right, welcome back to Ars Cryptotica. We've got episode 15 now. Henry, let's go.
Yeah, so I think it's great that we're having a week off here in the sense that we're not taking on a guest today. We have some pretty significant guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. We can talk about that if you want. We're going to have the content curator for Super Rare, the editor-in-chief for White Hot Contemporary Art Magazine. We'll be doing a collective guest episode on Twitter Spaces. We'll be doing a collective guest episode on collection and collectors that are making a difference in the NFT world. So those are just 4 of the episodes that are coming up. So lots of good things coming down the pike. How have you been?
I've been good, been busy. Last week was pretty busy getting out episode 13 and 14. I'm on summer vacation now. So, usually I have a couple jobs over here in Japan. One of them is working at a junior high school, and that got out last week. So I had the last 5 days off. It's been hot. It gets really hot and humid here in the summer, and then the Olympics kicked off yesterday. So I watched a bit of that, and things are good.
Oh, that's right in your backyard, isn't it?
Yeah, more or less. Now, but no one can go. You can just have, there's no spectators, so you just have to watch it on TV, but that's okay.
Well, at least they're having the Olympics. I know they had to put it off last year. So yeah. Did you happen to notice, speaking of NFT world, that the Tokyo Olympic packaged NFT boxes with 2 rare and 3 common NFTs in each box? I think there's about 3,500 boxes that in total. And so there's 140 of each of the rare NFTs, and significantly more of the common. But yeah, so that's available now to invest in if there's anybody out there that is interested.
I want to hear more about that. I have no idea what you're talking about. The boxes are in the internet or around the city or what?
No. So it's all digital, right? So yeah. One of the common phenomena here with collectibles you're starting to see it more is sealed boxes. So these boxes are pre-sold, and you can't open them for a certain
cards or something like that.
Yeah. So in this case, it's pins, and the pins are sort of celebrating all of the different categories that are participating in the Olympics. There's going to be focus in the rare pins on individual athletes. I'm guessing, of course, but I'm saying there may be superstars in attendance that people know will probably make up the rare within the categories of the Olympic, each of the Olympic sports. And then the commons, I'm guessing, will be more about the category of sport in general, sort of memorializing that category, whether it be, swimming, water polo, but then you have categories like, the extreme sports, which are wildly popular, anything Red Bull. And so you've got biking, and you've got skateboarding and things like that. So those I'm imagining will be hot.
How do you buy these? How do you purchase them?
So if you just Google Tokyo Olympics NFT, it'll take you right. It'll take you right to the site where you can get in line. And I think they're doing it in waves, which is also becoming a common practice. Like Damien Hirst, who just released his a very, very famous analog artist of the last 30 years out of England. And he is one of the first major analog artists to come over into the space, and it just released a really interesting 10,000 series of NFTs that were all hand painted at his factory by his staff and himself. So that's what I meant by waves, is that so they release X number of boxes or X number of NFTs in each wave. With Damien Hirst, there's actually a raffle. You actually have to win a chance to buy, because he's so, really infamous at this point in his career, that the demand far outweighs the supply. So that with Hirst, there's a raffle. With the Tokyo Olympics, it's just, sign up to get your chance to purchase. And those two NFTs are kind of like outside of the world of the Gen editions, like CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, the whole slew that are starting to evolve and derivatives of them. These are two interesting other categories of NFT that I think are big right now. I think you're seeing in the Tokyo Olympics how the corporate world is going to tokenize and monetize through the NFT programs and platforms additional content and additional revenue streams. And then with Damien Hirst, you're seeing a star celebrity power, how that moves the market. And I expect, that the value of the Hirsts are going to skyrocket. I mean, it should be unbelievable. But yeah, so those are two things. Yeah, so that's how you would get into the Tokyo Olympic NFT package, is just Google that.
Cool.
And it's actually relatively inexpensive, $24.99. You don't know what you're getting, but you do know that you're going to get 2 rare and 3 common NFTs. So you're actually getting 5 NFTs for $24.99.
I'm going to look into that. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of artists, we had Daniel Belardinelli on the program, and he got onto Uptick. I'm just curious, what was it like walking him through the steps to go from analog to digital to get his first NFTs online? Was it pretty easy for him, or any comments about that?
Much like a lot of people, like honestly, it was almost like talking to my grandmother about NFTs. He has his whole life been in the analog market and had absolutely no sort of technological background at all. He wasn't a crypto investor. He knows virtually nothing. Before we talked, he knew virtually nothing about what is NFT. I mean, I had to explain to him pretty much everything, but at the end of the day, it's an additional revenue stream, an additional sort of medium for an artist. And so he did jump on board. It started with a basic conversation about what is NFT, how are they purchased, how are they sold, what does it mean to hold them in a wallet, what is a wallet? Going over the basics was the first part of it. Walking him through downloading the Uptick app onto his phone, teaching him or helping him build a profile page and open up his wallet, explaining how the wallet worked for both receiving monies from sales and also how he would buy arts if he wanted to from the site, and explaining the idea of a native token also, because that it's not an Ethereum based or Binance Smart Chain based network. At the moment, pre-interoperability upgrades that are coming on the Uptick network, as you know, you are sort of stationed at the Uptick network. You can't really move your NFTs that you purchase or would like to sell from Iris to another site yet, but that's coming. So I had to explain that to him, that for now, working at Uptick is staying at Uptick with both your NFTs and the NFTs that you purchase. But he's also very up to date about the interoperability updates that are coming. And then it was about a brief conversation about immaterialism, which is a challenge for everybody outside of the NFT space. When you get past the sort of outer edge of crypto enthusiasts and people that have already been investing in what my wife would call invisible money for years, and you have the conversation outside of the that space, you know what it's like at work, and you say you mention it to a coworker and they're like, okay, so I buy what? Well, here it is, this art, this is what you're buying. Okay, and when do I get it?
Yeah.
And it just immediately, that question of like, how come there's not a print, or how come there's not a painting, that it's just in a wallet, and what does that mean? And so that's so new. The concept is so new. at least to the masses, right? It's certainly not a new concept in the inner circles of art history, but it is a new concept.
New to the old people too, right? Because like a lot of the kids, I think they're used to playing video games, buying skins. I know when one of my kids first wanted to buy some skins, I was like, "What? Like you can't touch it. It's just throwing money away." But after a while, you get to see the value. You know, they have a lot of fun using those things, having those things, looking at those things. So yeah, I'm sure people will catch on.
And the idea of prestige and popularity and being in the sort of cool club is also part of speculating also. I mean, it's, the risk takers came to crypto, and after the risk takers came to crypto and the general public started to see the risk takers making a lot of money, then you start having, more conscientious and easygoing people easing their way into the crypto, usually through like the main hubs of Gemini or, Coinbase. It's like, so, okay, I will invest X number of dollars into Bitcoin or Ethereum, but are they going to make their way to, Dent, or some altcoin, on the far reaches that's, you're betting on a horse that's maybe, odds they're fifth out in odds to make it. But, that's where the big money is when you lay down on that horse that is a few circles out in the odds, and that horse comes in. That's what the altcoin market is. And I think that market, you see, how it grows is like that cycling back and forth from Bitcoin rises, it'll flood back into the altcoin market. And then the altcoin market will skyrocket, and then that will fall back down. But its low will be a lower low, and its high will be a higher high. And it's sort of like, that's the regularity now that we have in the crypto space. Now, even this very painful downturn in Bitcoin is, as much as it is, like, oh gosh, look, we lost 20% of our portfolio value. But, it's like, if you don't sell, you don't lose it. And here we are, and we just wait. And the site, I mean, these things were in like eight or ninth cycle on Bitcoin already. So as it cycles back up, the high will be higher, the low will be lower. And I think you see a little bit of stability in at least that expecation. Whereas the
low will be lower or the low will be higher?
The lows are higher, the highs are higher. Meaning we don't stable out. We don't stable off as low each time there's a cycle up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right now, look at where Bitcoin is sitting, even after crashing. I mean, it flirted with 27 or 28 again. But I mean, it's like,
year and a half ago, it was 3,000, and we never would have, you would have given anything to have it at 28,000 a year and a half ago. It keeps
you would have given anything to have it at 3,000 a year and a half ago, or what I'm saying? Like, when it hit its bottom there before Christmas, and it was like, holy cow, is it going to go to zero? And everybody was freaking out about it. But here we are, and now its bottom seems to be in the high 20s, so, and I can, you look at the altcoins right now, I can remember when, they're up, all of them are up significantly. Like their low right now is an ancient high, so it's a beautiful cycle. Honestly, I love it. It doesn't bother me at all. And just to have seen it consistently do this now for so many years gives me great hope for the space. But what I was getting to is the NFT market doesn't yet have that sort of scope of cycles and stability. It's a little different in that, you're not talking about where these coins have a circulating supply, although in additions they can have a circulating supply, but they're mostly built on the notion of rarity. So, that's why they have a high-end potential, I think, that's, far exceeds what you're going to see in the altcoin market. And if you listen to some of the Twitter spaces where you have, excuse me, you have investors who really are into the collectibles. Who are networking extensively, researching and informing each other about, what's next, what is the next perspective skyrocketing collectible, the next derivative off of a, CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape. There's such a tight-knit community right now around collectibles. And so again, I'm seeing the space become ever increasingly informed. It's, the risk takers have become almost ambassadors. The early pioneers who I would have said were risk takers are now becoming ambassadors for educating the masses that are coming to the space slowly. So, the OGs, as you say, you go into the Twitter spaces and it's uncanny the amount of information being, disseminated to the people. And that's a beautiful thing to see. A lot of stewardship is starting to develop. Clearly the NFT space is a revolution. It is here to stay. And we're just so lucky to be here at the beginning of it and documenting the whole thing.
Yeah, I was going to save that for the end, but because that's what next week we're going to have a show on about Twitter Spaces, right? But
yeah,
maybe we'll get into it now. What are you looking to achieve in the next episode? What's going on?
Well, so the personalities that I have we're bringing on for the show are, emblematic of sort of like different types of stewardship, right? They're the best at what they do and how they do it. And with, like just say NFT Freaks, who's been on this show quite a few times, he's a bit of an aggregator and aggregator of cross-market content on his page. And he does a fantastic job at quickly gathering and disseminating like the whole picture. He's got a massive following, a very loyal following. He, as you know, we've had him on here twice now. A very eloquent, very fast thinker, very gracious toward his following. He has this MO of like cultivating his following very meticulously, in that he's genuinely vetting the types of followers that he wants to promote, support, and interact with. And I think that's something that's really interesting, is that he's sort of wading through the whole community and trying to handpick the people that have the greatest intentions. In some cases they may be the more talented artists, or in another case they may be generous of spirit, or they may be very informed, or but he looks out for that. So I think NFT Freaks is, he's obviously a fantastic representative of the Twitter spaces. And, his space is, almost 100 people on average, perhaps more. I mean, I try to duck into one of his spaces at least a couple times a week. You have NFT Millionaire, who's one of the more recognizable collectors and advocates of collection in the NFT market. And he brings to the table in his spaces a real strong sense of stewardship. You see him kind of working around ethical concerns. He's tackling some sort of long-standing issues in the art market, which is underrepresentation of women and minorities and whatnot. So he's doing some things actively in his spaces to promote sort of overcoming what historically has been an issue. He's very well connected. So that's something that NFT Millionaire does bring to the space, is that all of the major players in the NFT market are close to NFT Millionaire. And he handles that responsibility very well. Everybody who knows him and follows him and listens to him knows that he knows everyone. So in that way, he's a bit of a market mover, in that, he can really blow up somebody if he wants. Like, somebody like him, Pranksy, Mentalist, they're kind of trend setters. What they do, what they say matter. It's just because they came with so much integrity. They put their money where their mouth is. There's no, I would say NFT Millionaire represents the highest standard of collector stewardship in the space right now. And so that's why I want him on the space, on the episode.
So it'll be those two and more?
Yeah, we're going to have Kamachi, one of a dear friend of mine at this point. We've had a lot of great conversations. I spend a good amount of time in her spaces. She is unique more so than all the rest in that she doesn't allow her spaces to focus on the art, the collection, the business side of things. She's not about shilling. She's not about, making careers or breaking careers. All Kamachi focuses on is self-empowerment. And so she's taking the personality and the crisis of confidence that is historically plagues artists, especially young and emerging artists. And it's almost like she workshops people's fears. And she does it in a way that's really powerful, very impactful. Everybody that goes to her spaces, I tell you, I say it reminds me often of being in like AA.
This episode of Ars Cryptotica is brought to you by Uptick Project, the NFT world in your hand. Uptick is a decentralized mobile app built on top of the Uptick protocol. Manage your NFT-based digital assets with a focus on entertainment, sports, and the creative industry. Whatever your need for NFTs, Uptick has you covered.
Or, an NA meeting or something, or a meeting where you're there for help, or you're sitting with your therapist, right? You're in a room full of people that you implicitly trust because everybody seems to be in that same state of vulnerability. And those are the kinds of people that are gravitating to Kamachi because she's so gifted and so sensitive to people's inner needs and fears. And she's doing a great job at taking the most vulnerable, the quietest, the meekest voices, and helping them sort of workshop that fear into a larger confidence. And then eventually bringing these people who wouldn't speak anywhere or contribute, they finally start to come out in her space. And then after several weeks, you might see one of these people in another more aggressive space, that deals with more populist topics. And then these people are, coming up and speaking in those spaces and trying to contribute. And in a lot of, you can look around, you can ask a lot of people in the NFT world right now. Kamachi is really important to the career paths of young emerging artists who are very insecure. She's done a great job with that. And so she'll be on the show. Altered Motion is one of the more profound artists in the space by my estimation. And we'll talk about, the Academy and some of the essays that I'll be writing. He is a conceptual artist that has a very specific lineage to color field painters in the analog world, like somebody like a Rothko. His work comes across as almost spiritualized. And as a space host, I have not found anybody that tackles the sort of peripheral topics of business, like copywriting or copy infringement, the ins and outs of platforms. He goes deep into the nitty gritty. He's done enormous amounts of research. And of all the different speakers of all these spaces that we'll be talking to, I would say he is probably like he almost feels like, you walk up to the counter at the Better Business Bureau and there's somebody who's endowed with, every answer to every question you could possibly have about the business of NFT market. That's Altered Motion. So over and above his fantastic art project, he's also offers, he's a great asset to the community. And a lot of people, go follow his space, which for me actually is damn near midnight in my market. So usually when I'm getting out of work is when I'll check in and listen to him on the way home. And he's really a great asset to the community. So he'll be another speaker, and there are others. But again, so they represent niche voices that are doing different things. They're doing it better than everybody else. And I think all of them will have something really significant to say about both their program, other people's programs, because they all interact with each other and go to each other's spaces. They learn from each other. They're expanding the concept of the spaces, which is, as if you don't know, is a Twitter pilot program that's sort of taking on what the Clubhouse app was a year ago. Twitter Spaces ventured into that and is doing a significantly better job. But yeah, typically, like when you see a pilot program for a big company like Twitter, usually they do this by market and they expand slowly. And Twitter made a really bold decision to just launch the Twitter Spaces, probably in the interest of catching up to Clubhouse across the board. So it sort of defies the notion of pilot in that literally everybody had access to the spaces. And well, this is what's happening with them. So they're invaluable to the growth and improvement of the space. And these are individuals who are clearly defining the way.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Things are always changing, right? Like everyone was talking about Clubhouse a year ago, and now no one talks about it. So it's changing around. I was looking at, do you know Odyssey? It's like a competitor to YouTube. Have you heard much about Odyssey before?
No, I have not.
No, so it changes around. I think it started off being called Library, and now there's still part of it called Library, but there's the main part's called Odyssey. It's basically YouTube without censorship, but it also runs on blockchain. So when you upload stuff there, you have to wait a little bit longer for it to get on the blockchain, I guess. And there's rewards. So if you watch stuff, you can earn the token called Library, LBRY. And if you post stuff there and people watch it or like it, then you earn the cryptocurrency that way. You can kind of send tips. So I was looking into that last week, and it looks like it has a lot of potential, especially with some of the censorship going on with other topics. So now I've put all the episodes there so people can watch it on Odyssey as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, we should focus on that if you want. And you know where else? Odyssey reminds me of the Theta project. I mean, Theta is basically the same thing. Challenging a decentralized YouTube. So look into that also if you haven't. And it's a much, it's a higher profile project. I mean, Theta's been around for quite a while. Building their program, and they're I think top 50 coin market cap project. So, and I don't know too many people that don't know about Theta. I mean, and they've launched their mainnet. So, they're already, in the running as far as NFT and video is concerned.
Yeah. I know a lot of people know the Theta token, but I don't know anyone personally that uses the service. I've never even, maybe I've looked into it once, but I'll look into it. It's hard, there's so many different things, the Discord, the Twitter, the Facebook, the this, the that. It is endless. It sometimes gets a bit overwhelming. There's too many things to look into, but it's good to keep learning.
I agree, but I would say this, and in my humble opinion, the NFT market is perfectly built for Twitter. Twitter for me is the engine that is going to define the rise, success, and document it so completely thoroughly. That's what we're seeing. I can't see any other medium taking over the importance of Twitter to the NFT market.
Yeah, Twitter's awesome.
It won't be possible. I mean, the foundation of the NFT market is already being laid by a network of individuals that are very heavy into Twitter. And, you really don't even hear much about any other spaces beyond Discord. Discord tends to be an offshoot from what originates in Twitter. And where people want to dig down into more of like group conversations that are, not public, they'll move it over to Discord where, you can set it up to be invite only and whatnot, but where it functions like a message. It functions like a messenger, but with the ability to build out an entire hub. So like if you go and look at /Ace, he has a great Discord channel. And so it's literally called a channel. And then within your channel, you can have, like, think of the metaphor of many stations, right?
Mm.
So, Slash Dace has, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 different stations. And when he was coordinating for his deck project, that Discord became really a priority, because he was able to bring the 54 artists into his Discord channel. And it organizes itself much more practically there than it would, like, say, a DM, a group DM on Twitter, so it's a really empowering second option for dialogue and communication between specific groups with specific interests, like a project that you're building out. And that's, so that's another one that I think is really important to the NFT revolution, but it is sort of like the back channels to what's happening on Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's a good tool. But personally, just, I know what you mean about those stations, but like right now, I think I belong to, let's say, 20 groups on Discord. And then each of those 20 groups has like 20 stations inside. And then you see, like, okay, there's something new, and you have to go digging around and clicking in this station and that station. And if you want to be kept up, keep up with everything, I think it just takes too much time. I've got a question, something that doesn't get mentioned much, is copyright. I don't know if you've heard much about, if there's much talk about it. So I'm just curious, when you buy an NFT, have people discussed who owns the copyright? Like, does the artist lose the title to it? What's going on with copyright and NFTs?
So I think, like, prevailing historical precedents are just kind of holding on right now as a general rule of thumb. But much like, you saw with crypto, that regulatory bodies and laws and governance, things like copyright, are going to make their way to a more specific, with more specific guidance over time. It's really not, there haven't been any, like, landmark cases yet that I know of anyway, sort of dealing with disputes. There was the funks on OpenSea, which is a kind of a playful derivative of the CryptoPunks, really well executed. That was, what do you call it? The CryptoPunks protested their existence at OpenSea as, like, copyright infringement, or to that end, and OpenSea momentarily delisted the funks from OpenSea, but they made their case, and that's the kind of cases that will be made that maybe haven't yet made their way to the courts, because so much of this is decentralized, and that's how these programs want it to be. And so there's not a lot of interest really to get outside of the decentralization into the centralized world for comment, and ruling. Mm-hmm. So I think part of the copyright problems, the copyright problem, is that you have the sort of rule of decentralization and all the the programs behind that, the interest, the libertarian notions and freedom and anonymity, and there's so much involved here that it's not going to happen overnight. And I do think eventually you're going to see just landmark cases, but they were able to work through the dispute, and OpenSea relisted the funks. So, again, that was worked out through back channels. It was sort of like arbitrated by OpenSea, and here we are. So, but in general, I was listening to a great space, Devin the Dude, on Twitter, who's very, very smart about. He's like that. Like I was saying before, there are people out there who are really into the whole community of collectibles, the whole sort of arc and historical significance of the collectible as NFT, the additions, derivatives. He's constantly disseminating to his community through the spaces, opportunities, things to look out for. I heard a concerned listener speak up today about copy minting, which, that we mint our NFTs in this world, hence the phrase copy minting, which is sort of a copy infringement in the NFT market, that people can easily copy paste and remint in some distant, NFT platform far away from the more popular ones, and, sell what they copy and mint, as opposed to just, they're not an artist, they're just copy and minting the art of successful artists in other places. That is, we've talked about this in earlier episodes. It is a problem, but, the solution to it is going to be, it's going to come with stewardship. It's going to come with aggregators. We've talked about, like corporatizing or overarching like aggregators of the entire space, where you can get a cross view at a glance across all markets and all platforms. So that, the advancement of interoperability is going to be very necessary for that. But not being a digital or tech guy myself, I won't speak to how far out it is, but that you can't see all markets at a glance is basically the problem. Once you can see all markets at a glance, you'll then see services pop up where you can sign up for kind of protections as an artist. At least this is how I envision it, where your work can be registered, through a service at these aggregating sites, that if your work pops up anywhere else, you're informed of it. And then there'll be a process of taking care of that from there on. So there's a business model waiting to happen. And it's going to be necessary for, like, even if it's decentralized, we're going to need that decentralized governance to sort of proof the space. But this notion of copy minting, for now, what can you do as an artist? And this is something I wanted to speak to on the show, but it was disconnected, which is one of the problems with Twitter Spaces at the moment. Sort of, them just suddenly being, falling out and having to be reconnected and whatnot. So anyway, the idea of being copied. So I think that starts with the behavior of the collector, right? As a collector, you should feel a certain amount of responsibility to investigate what it is that you're collecting. And by investigate, I mean, don't just say, I love that, boom, and buy it, right? Because the I love that, boom, and buy it is what will get you into a situation where you one day discover you bought a fake or a forgery or a copy mint of something that somebody else made, right?
Yeah,
also,
I've made that mistake.
Right. It's happening all over the place right now. How can you avoid that? By going down that rabbit hole of research into the artist behind the art that you are interested in buying. If there's complexity in the art, meaning if you know that there's a level of artistic merit based on what you're seeing, that artistic merit has a history. And that history will be, in most cases, the artist will be very vocal about what they're doing, their art project, their life project. This is their life. This isn't, playtime or a hobby where there's a higher level of complexity. There's a high level of personal involvement and investment on behalf of the artist. So you can quickly find that the art that is represented, I know we're in a decentralized world now, and I do know that people are concerned about anonymity, and there are lots of great artists in the space that prefer to remain anonymous. But that does not mean that they're anonymous. Their anonymity does not preclude a disinterest in exploring and expressing the motivation and influence and the sort of nuts and bolts of their artistic project. That will be available if you do just a minimum amount of research. You should see a trail of investment on behalf of the artist. You will see a level of complexity that matches the art in their artistic profiles at their various social media hubs. There should be also multiple channels. If you can't find a single social media channel behind an artist, one of these, like, behind an art, if there isn't a single social media channel supporting that complex art, chances are that's a copy mint, right? I would say that is a good rule of thumb. There's no artist that I've ever met that isn't, even if they are remaining anonymous, that is not projecting their investment in what they're doing. So that's the first thing I would say to collectors. Just do a little bit of research and find that evidence of social media investment in their project, their own project. If it's not their own project, meaning they're copy minting, then they're not going to have the chops. They're not going to have the knowledge that pertains to the origin and the influence of that work, right? You're not going to see anything that sort of, in light of like manifesto, right?
Yeah.
If there's no articulation about what it is anywhere, it's probably a mint. It's a copy mint, because artists don't create their work in a vacuum. So
yeah, it takes a lot of hard work, right? You got to, and they don't learn how to be an artist overnight. It takes years and years. So there should be a trail. Yeah, in my case, it wasn't a big deal. It was just when the Uptick app came out, there was this Elon and Dodge image, and I thought, oh, that looks kind of cool. It was free, so it wasn't like any money lost. But then I saw that image pop up on my Google search like a few weeks later, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And then yeah, it turns out, I guess I didn't know the term, but I guess you call it a copy mint.
Well, if it's an exact copy of something else that's original, it would be, that's the term that's now being floated out about the copy mint, right? This is a sort of jargonistic word for, a new phenomenon in the world, because NFT is relatively new. So you're going to have this, build out of vocabulary around the NFT market, and the copy mint is one of those such words.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So again, being an art history buff, I am constantly, across so many platforms, seeing clear evidence of, I'm not talking about today's artists. I'm saying clear evidence of a Monet, of a Cezanne, of a Picasso, of a Clay, a Gorky. You name it. I have seen evidence of basically people just, in some cases, literally copying and minting, the work of a master that's hanging in a museum somewhere, and printing out an edition of something that's clearly beautiful, and just trying to, opportunistically make money by minting Picasso, and charging, $2 for it. And an edition of 500, and it sells out. Well, you just made $1,000 for doing nothing other than copying a Picasso, and that's the kind of thing, like, I would frown upon collecting that kind of crap. And it is crap, because at some point, the pleasure of the Picasso is going to come from the foundations when they start to mint. The history of art is going to make its way into the NFT world. But it needs to come through the foundations of these, dead artists, these dead legends. When Van Gogh's foundation mints Starry Nights, don't think there won't be, a line of billionaires a mile long waiting to buy it, that one of one. But so when you see, when you see something that has hanging in a museum somewhere, I tell you, I could promise you there was no permission to reproduce that painting as an NFT and try to make some money off of it. And don't encourage that by, buying it. It's just a fool's game. And it hurts the space. It hurts the integrity of the space. And so, we should do everything we can to avoid, egging on these people to keep up this kind of behavior.
Yeah, I agree.
But so that was what I wanted to say to the collector about this, that you can do now. Research, look for the traces. To the artist, I would say, along those same lines, make sure that you are investing into articulating about your art project, that you are leaving traces everywhere, that you do have a footprint in social media, that your artist profile does in some way articulate your art project so that those traces are there for collectors to find and feel confident that what they're investing in is original. So it's the task of the artist to create that confidence in the spaces where collectors will go to find their work, right? Don't leave the door open for this shameless copy minting, because I can promise you that the collectors that are spending significant amounts of money are not doing this haphazardly. They are. Why do you think, the most expensive works, for the most part, and especially individual artworks, when I say individual artworks, I mean GAN collectibles, GAN generated, AI generated collectibles. The individual artists, the bigger names in the spaces, are going through, some elite platforms like Nifty Gateway, Super Rare, Foundation. You're not finding the copy mints at those places. Those places do a great job through their systems, the way they built out their platforms to kind of guarantee, or at least mostly guarantee, that the work that and the artists on those platforms is coming with the highest integrity. Where you have sort of like, the wild west open markets, OpenSea, Rarible, Mintable, they're fantastic platforms, but that's where you got to go in and take everything with a grain of salt and do your research. Make sure. It doesn't necessarily mean that an artist needs to be verified, because that process can take weeks and months. But it does mean that if what you see you like, you should get just a little bit deeper than the surface of what you're looking at. Yeah. Those are two things that I think really people need to take into account. As an artist, leave those traces, build out that artistic profile. Think about how in the analog world, you don't get to do anything through gallery without a CV, right? Well, how come in the NFT world, there isn't any talk about CVs, right? So a CV, if you don't know and you're listening because you're a digital artist that's never shown in a gallery, is that resume that shows everything of relevance that you've ever done in the art world, right? Whether that be one of your works was used as a book cover, or you were interviewed by this online magazine, or you were part of a group show, even a group show at a coffee house in your hometown. I mean, that's what would be on a CV. You'd have a bio, you'd have an artist statement, which is sort of that mini manifesto of the content of your projects. And, so I would recommend that we as a community start to think about, some of these traditional aspects of like profile validation. If you're not willing to put up a trail of that can validate your artwork, right? If you're not willing to articulate your art project, chances are, you're not that invested in your future as an artist in the NFT market. That's just my opinion.
Oh, I hear you. Let's change it up. How's the 501c3 coming along? Have you filed the papers, or were you any closer to getting that set up?
Well, so the uptick with Uptick, and this is something that I want to. This is going to be a slow boil, I think, over the next couple of months. So right now, I'm at the stage with Uptick. We're finalizing, advisor agreements and contracts. The long-term view with my relationship with Brian at Uptick, the CEO, is, they're very interested, meaning it's a done deal. They're very interested in building out the 501c3 platform with me, and that will come. Right now, because of where they're at in their, mainnet development, upgrades, interoperability, auctioning. I mean, you think about the sheer number of functions that Brian's talked about that are coming in the next 2 months. The dev team that is fully, vested in that right now.
Yeah, they're slammed, right? There's a lot going on.
A lot going on. And he's tirelessly, hopping the globe right now, giving presentations on Uptick and building the momentum for a global launch, right? Which hasn't happened yet. So, Uptick, as I've said many times, is one of the sweetest little projects under the radar anywhere. That most of what's going to make it incredible over time is still coming, like the interoperability across, the Ethereum network or the Binance Smart Chain, that you will, in short period of time, be able to mint on Uptick and sell on Binance Chain, or one of the platforms in the Ethereum network, is extraordinary, because to mint at Uptick is significantly less expensive than minting on the Ethereum network. So, the idea of the wrapped iris, right? Being able to migrate across to all these chains is going to be I think a game changer for the NFT market, because one of the biggest problems for the masses, for NFT to really become a global phenomenon and increase its percentage, of reach into the population, it's going to have to become increasingly financially feasible, and to mint on the Ethereum network is, as everybody knows who's done it, can be extremely expensive, and painful. With just how volatile the market is, and the lack of guarantee of sale, which is normal in any market, it's a big investment for somebody who's trying to sell an NFT to know that it's going to cost them $50 or $100 just to list it. So that's one of the huge advantages. But the 501c3 is in the works. The sort of what do you call it? The technical planning is being done now. The functionality of it, the philosophy behind it, but the big moves for it are probably, we're not going to see ground broken until after the first of the year, 2022.
Oh, it's good to hear the wheels are in motion. It's good news. Just have to wait.
Yeah. And Uptick, I wanted to also add, my long-term goal is to establish a concept of artistic collectives through Uptick, because I think the value added with the Uptick project is how malleable and how docile the company is to the needs of artists, the way in which they've swiftly and succinctly asked me to advise the company, and have taken everything we've said, you and I, because you've contributed a great deal as well. They've taken it all very seriously. They're building all of our suggestions, which are about the needs of artists, the functionality, how the site works. And so at some point, I think what would be really fantastic would be to have a functional sort of space within the platform to build artists, like micro communities of artist collectives, right? The people that want to do things. So the collaboration, right? Collaboration I think is going to define the NFT revolution. I do believe that if there's an ism that's going to come out of this digital NFT market in this revolution, it's going to be something like collabism, right?
Yeah.
I'll coin that word right now, collabism. I feel like the individual artists will always be here, but what's really going to be groundbreaking in the next 10 years is what happens in light of collaborations.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of collaboration, I got a couple quick questions. I'll put them together. So one is, I saw the Einfall NFT you made with Slashed Ace. I wanted to hear a little bit about that. And I had some ideas. I don't know if you're receptive to ideas, but I was thinking, because it's Einfall, like if you could do it one where someone is like literally falling, like have it animated, like on the edge of a cliff. It might be kind of cool. And then the other one is the deck project. I can't remember exactly. I think you're the 3 of clubs or the 3 of spades. I was wondering if your card's done or what you have in mind for that.
Yeah, actually, I did the card. I produced that card and submitted it to the project about within a week of being invited.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I was very. I knew exactly what I wanted to make. There's, I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to describe it or anything. But as you know, my brother passed away on the 3rd of February. In 2018. So that was the reason behind the 3. I will say this, my piece is dark. Dark in the sense that it's a little brooding about the loss of my brother. And it's also kind of, like I said, it's a straight up memorial to the date of his death.
You were free to choose the numbers? Was it hard to get what you wanted for numbers? Because there's 54 cards, right?
If I was after the Joker, I wouldn't have had a chance. You know what I mean? Like if you're after some of the, like the aces, I mean, like, so slashed ace. I mean, obviously the ace of spades is slashed, as it was slash card from the get. But like coming in, I knew exactly what I wanted. I would have been happy with the 3 of, any of the, any of the cards. Whether it was clubs or hearts or diamonds, spades, I would have been happy to have the 3. When I looked, half the cards probably already were taken. And at the time, I don't think any of the 3s were taken, so it's just one of those numbers that wasn't a problem. And, I wish that what didn't have to be my card, but like I said, I'm always memorializing my brother in everything I do in some way, shape or form. And it was an opportunity for me to where I hadn't really ever thought about. There's a poem by W.S. Merwin, a lauded American poet, canonized American poet. And it's called For the Anniversary of My Death. Every year, without knowing it, I have passed the day when the last fires will wave to me, and the silence will set out, tireless traveler, like the beam of a lightless star. Then I will no longer find myself in life as in a strange garment, surprised at the earth and the love of one woman and the shamelessness of men, as today, riding after 3 days of rain, hearing the wren sing and the falling cease and the bowing, not knowing to what. And that is that idea that every year we pass the date on which one day we too shall pass without knowing it. And there's something profound about my brother's death that taught me about the significance of what this poem meant, and so every year for the rest of my life, the 3rd of February is just punctuated by that loss. And it's not all negative. It's in a lot of ways, there's a lot of sort of philosophical concern for me in this, and that is in this poem. So that's what I thought about when I was asked to produce a card. I wanted the 3, and I was thinking about the idea of this that is talked about in this poem. So
I'm looking at the Slashed Ace website right now. It says 16 days to go until they're all done. Do you know what the plans are? Are they going to be dropped one by one, or as a set, or is it on foundation? I don't know any details about where these cards will go.
Yeah, so most of the details of the drop are still under wraps. So, if you noticed when Slashed asked me, he just popped into my DM one day on Twitter and he says, "Hey, I want to do this collab with you right now." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And so he said, "Give me a word and I will I will produce my calligraphic art of that word, and that means something to you, and then you take my calligraphic word and do something with it." And that's how that collaboration started. And so I had actually
That's
already
the Einfall one, right?
Yeah, Einfall.
Okay, yeah.
So I had already envisioned a project that I would eventually get into about cataloging a particular body of words that are really significant to my life's project in the arts. And so when I think about my whole life of reading and my whole life of searching and my whole life of bearing witness to art on walls, art in magazines, that which informs who I am, you know, I can narrow it down to a couple of hundred individual words as concepts, you know, terms that bleed out into, you know, whole ideological movements, or something, you know, as simple as, you know, the word date, like just unfolded in the 3rd of February around that poem in the collage, the collaboration with the Deck Project. So when he said that, that was sort of like, here's my segue into this project that I have had on, you know, on the desk for at least for 6 months. So that was the first word I wanted to go with Einfall, because Einfall is just this, you know, that we've talked about it. It is the spirit for me of what drives me in art, and what drives me in thinking, and what drives me in language, and what drives me in through everything in my life. And that is just falling into that energy, that, you know, risk taking, that, you know, doing without care for consequence, because it is the act of doing that is like liberating and enlightening. So that word Einfall means probably is one of the most significant words to me of all that will be produced. The second word, which is underway, is going to be duende. And if I had to say, that would be it's a close fight for first. You know, Einfall kind of fits into the concept of duende in different ways. And duende is a very, very misconstrued, oftentimes misunderstood word. You know, so duende historically refers to the Siguiera of the flamenco players, is sort of like the origin of this. So the Siguiera is like a poem, a musical poem that is sourced in the duende. And so these master guitar players and these, you know, Siguiera singers, they go into a trance-like state. You know, and this is a gypsy culture where this stems from. And they go into a trance-like state and call up this duende. And this duende is an energy that has its roots in death to a certain extent, like the idea of death, not one's death or dying, but that death is an energy, has an energy source, much as life has an energy source or is an energy source. And so that everybody focuses on accessing the life force. The duende is that accessing of the death force. And so one's interpersonal relationship with death, one's respect for the power of death, which is what grants the power of living. If you think about it that way, life is made valuable by death. And, you know, if we didn't die, life would be less valuable. So there's so many nuances to the concept of duende, but it was brought out into the open air of poetry and metaphorical language, that you could also bring this death force into the sort of divine vision of one's artistic creation, regardless of what medium you worked in. And Federico Garcia Lorca penned an essay. Really, it was a speech, a talk that he gave at a academic convention before he died, about theory and play of duende. And I've recently posted that essay on Twitter, and I probably posted it across social media 1,000 times in the last 10 years. But it's, I think, just one of the great essays ever written by one of the great poets that ever lived. So it makes sense. But yeah.
That duende is German, or where does that come from?
So duende is a
Spanish?
So the gypsy culture is a migratory culture. So I don't know exactly the the Andalusian gypsy culture is where I know Duende to have risen out of, and it is from that same region that Federico Garcia Lorca, comes out of as a poet, the great Spanish poet. But is that Duende, local to Andalusia? I'm not 100% certain, because, again, gypsies are a migratory culture, and the Andalusian gypsies probably migrated at some point from, Romania or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's not really, as far as I know, the etymology on the word is not very clear, but the expression of its meaning and value to art is very, very clear. I mean, there's a lot of source work that you can get into, but I would start with Federico Garcia Lorca's essay.
Based on your description about them playing guitars and singing and kind of getting into a trance-like state, I can kind of get the feel for it. Yeah, when I saw that Einfall card, I think it's a great card, but I guess I must have seen it before I went to bed, and I don't know if it was as I was going to bed or as I was waking up, but I was thinking about it, and I was thinking if I could make some sort of image where, like, the left side there's a person. I was wondering what's the best way to describe this Einfall, because you talked about it with Daniel Belardinelli, and I think you referred to surfing, but for whatever reason I was thinking like bungee jumping, so you could do like the left side someone like on the bridge just waiting. Have you ever tried bungee jumping?
I do that.
Haven't
the
tried
reason
that?
I wouldn't do that is at my age. I think in my 20s I probably would have done anything, but the body becomes slightly less capable of withstanding impacts.
You'll be fine. You're not that old. You'll be okay.
Yeah,
you're all about the risk, right?
There's a reason why I'm fine, John. It's because I don't bungee jump. I'm going to be 50 next year, and I have no interest in bungee jumping or skydiving. Yeah, my idea of risky venture is, to get off a plane in a faraway city and take a cab to the center of town, know nobody, and walk the streets for 24 hours. I'll do that and stop at 10 cafes for 10 glasses of wine. That to me is about as risky as I'll get at this point in my life.
Yeah, I had that image in my head, but I'm learning some things. I made my first GIF a week or two ago. I'm trying to figure out what software. Last week was Inkscape. I guess it's more about creating vectors, but I was messing around with that. And GIMP, I'm getting a little more proficient at. But I don't know how the NFT artists that have a lot of animation, like how they do it. I don't know I could easily research it, but I look at their stuff and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. I'd like to do that, but I still haven't gotten there yet. But I thought for the bungee jumping, if the person was like actually falling down, it would be kind of cool, the fall and the iron fall. And one day I'll get there.
So if you want to practice and have some fun, and we can collaborate on this, is just do it. I mean, create a derivative of this collaborative series.
Okay.
That's certainly I'll certainly give you permission to do that. You know what I mean? Just do it. That's
okay.
Cool. I have no interest in animated, in motion and whatnot. Just my life's work doesn't really lend itself to that. And I have a very particular project line that I'm working on, and it's going to probably take me to my grave. So at this point in my life, I'm happy to advocate for and elaborate on this great art in digital 3D and animated digital in video. I'm a huge fan of it, but it doesn't suit my needs for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But so I would be happy to see it done. I wouldn't do that myself. So please do.
Okay. I'll get back to you on that. All right. Anything else we should talk about before we wrap it up? Did I miss anything?
Well, this was fun. This was really casual. I don't know how much the content is going to be what people were expecting after all these serious shows that we've had.
I think it's good to just change it up. Like, I was going to ask you, what do people want to know who the artist is. I was going to ask you about your summer vacation. Like, do you camp, or what do you do when I know you're always busy, but do you go on road trips, or what do you do when you?
No, I mean so we have a lot of kids, and
I work nights. My wife works days. She's a barber. She's at a barber shop all day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a wine steward in the restaurant industry at night.
Mm-hmm.
So, we work opposite schedules. So that's the first sort of barrier to that. Let's say, whether not to say that we don't have, days where we do things and whatnot, but we have decided long ago to turn our home into the world's biggest playground for children. So like we have every conceivable thing that the kids would want to go do, from trampolines to pools and swings and hammocks. And, it's anything the kids could ever want to do. And where we're located, we're very close to a park for the kids, and there's corner stores for the kids to walk to, and everybody's got a bike and a skateboard. And, so I'm a real homebody. I actually don't, I'm not the kind of person who likes to go out, to be honest. Like my wife and I will go out on dinner dates and whatnot, but it's about as much as we do anything like that. Just, I really am. I so enjoy being home. I don't know how else to explain it. I love
nothing wrong with that.
Being with a family, and and I work a lot. I mean, so I'm 50 hours a week in the art side of my life, and about another 30 hours a week in the restaurant side. So I mean, I'm working 80 hours a week.
Busy. Yeah. This year we were wondering what to do in Japan here. COVID's still a bit of a problem, and like one of the campgrounds we were thinking about going to has been shut down, but we found another one. We're going to go camping at the beach for 3 days in August. So that's something to look forward to.
That is something to look forward to. I personally hate camping. I would have to go glamping, which by that I mean I'd have to be in a hotel room near a forest. So if there's not a hotel with a hot tub next to a forest, you're probably not going to find me near that forest.
Yeah. Everyone's
not a big fan of bugs.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the bugs, but it's cheap and it's kind of adventurous. It's kind of fun. It's good for the kids. But
I know it is. Don't get me wrong. I'm just playing here. Yeah. I think that I'm trying to see if there's anything else I really wanted to talk about today. I get excited for these episodes to come. I'm so excited to have the talk with both the collectors and the talk about the spaces, Super Rare, White Hot Magazine. I reached out again to Ether. I'm sorry. Was it artchick.ether?
Mm-hmm.
I love her program on Twitter. She's definitely an influencer. She's got a great following. And she's a powerful speaker. She moves the ticker every time she says something, and I love that about her. I respect that she is inundated, or probably I would imagine she's inundated by people that want to ingratiate themselves to her. But I would just say if anybody knows her, to reach out to her and to reiterate to her that our project is about documenting this historical moment in the rise of a revolutionary new art movement in NFT. And I know it goes even beyond art. We're not here to self-promote. We're here to document. And I think she's a worthy personality in the space that should be documented. So if you hear this episode and you have her ear, let her know that we welcome her as a guest. And in particular, I've said this to her in DM without any response, that she was instrumental in exploring the ether poems and, giving that some traction in the public space. And I really want to have an episode dedicated to poetry. And I'm kind of holding out for her to be on that episode with some other people. So I think she'd be a great voice about the idea of how poetry can be monetized in the NFT space.
Yeah.
So
that'd be great. I was just looking at her profile as you're speaking, and in her bio, the only line is "Never DM me." So,
yeah, I know. And I
know.
There was at one point where I DM'd her, I was basically spamming her because I was so excited. I just wanted her to be on the show.
Yeah,
this was maybe 2 months ago, and she finally was just blew me up in public, but she did it anonymously. and about DMing her, and I just knew she was talking about my DM. So I said to her right in that comment where she wasn't calling me out specifically, but I said in that comment, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. And I won't do it anymore until this morning when I did it again. So, but no, this morning I forwarded her the last episode with NFT Freaks, because, listen, NFT he's the man. I love listening to NFT talk, and I think he does a great job on the show. Him and I riff well together. He's an animal, he's a total beast to be in conversation with.
In the last show, he kind of like, I don't know what to say, but he made some references to like rapping and different things. And because he can speak so fast and he's so quick-witted. Do you know much about his background? Has that come up before?
Not that I would be willing to speak to. I would leave that for him to talk about.
Yeah.
But I concur. He is as quick-witted as I've come across in conversation. So that's why I love to get in conversation with him. You know what I mean? It's that challenge of keeping up with NFT. He's a beast, man.
Last show was without coffee, right? Like he just rolled out of bed and he was just all fire. I don't know how those people get that energy. It's great, but
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so this morning I sent her our episode together, which I think is a fantastic episode. I mean, we covered so much ground. And I think that the content speaks for itself. So, if maybe she'll think about it. We'll see. At some point, I'll say this in public right now. At some point, she's gonna regret it if she doesn't get on this show, because regardless of the stature of the show, we're documenting it for history. And at some point, we're gonna have 100, and then at some point, we're gonna have 500 episodes. And let me tell you that when we have 500 episodes, there's gonna be nothing that wasn't documented about the NFT revolution over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And if you're missing from that catalog of 500 episodes, it's going to be sad. So
I'm sure she'll be able to.
That would be my comment to that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's wrap it up, and we'll do it again in a week with the Twitter Spaces group, right?
Yeah. Next week is Twitter Spaces. As I said, I'm excited about that. So I'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Thanks, Henry. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.